I'm really delighted to welcome Katie and Donna, Katie from Solenis and Donna from Godfrey, to talk about the project they did at Solenis and all the challenges. And there were a lot of headwinds, I think, you had to overcome to refocus on ESG. So thank you very much, guys, and just give them a big welcome and looking forward to their session. So thank you, guys.
Good morning. I am the other Katie, and I don't have on a pink jacket. So I'm all dressed in black. I had to put that in there for you, right? So, but I'm delighted to be here today with Donna, and we're going to talk a little bit about our ESG journey. And you might say, well, what the heck is an ESG journey? And so we are a brand that woke up one day and said, oh my, the market has changed just a little bit, and ESG is now suddenly a thing, and now sustainability is suddenly a thing, and maybe we should think about a little bit of a brand refresh. And so this is really just a case study and a conversation about how we went about that with a truly great partner. So as we've already said, I am Katie Abernathy. I lead the corporate communications team for Solenis, and we are a water intensive company, and we sell specialty chemicals into those spaces.
Hi, everyone. I am Donna Harris, and I am Director of Strategy at Godfrey. If you're not familiar with Godfrey, we are a leading B2B agency located in Pennsylvania. So before we get started on the journey and the conversation, I just wanted to level set everybody on some language. So I've heard from clients, oh, ESG, that's just like the new sustainability, right? I mean, isn't that what it is? Well, I'm going to make it really easy for people to think about ESG. So there are 4, sometimes 5 P's of ESG. The first one is proposition, your value prop. And that's where we're going to start our story today. The next 3 P's are around ESG. So E is environmental, so think planet. S is social, think people. G is governance, think policy. Now, if you do this all right, there is actually a 5th P, and that is profits.
And in our case, we wanted that to be so. So for another perspective on how ESG helps to build a better business, we've got a quick video here from our CEO, John Panicella.
My name is John Panicella. I'm the CEO of Solenis. What we're building in Solenis is a company really to drive sustainable outcomes for our customers. We do that through a variety of products and services we offer customers to allow them to recycle water, and reuse vital raw materials that they use in their production processes. So when you look at the components of ESG, it's really something that we've been building for a long time. In the environmental area, we're really good at how we engage with our customers. So we engage with them around helping them save water, energy, raw materials. It's pretty fundamental to what we do. The social aspects of ESG is really about building a great company around people. And so we've really focused on our culture, how we build a great culture, how we recognize, attract, retain, develop people. That's what we've really been focused. And then obviously governance is making sure that we do the right things, not only for our own people, but for our stakeholders around the world. ESG is about building a great company, and that's kind of been our focus from day one.
And so just who is Solenis? Well, we've been around for nearly 100 years, but the brand was born in 2014 when we spun off a legacy company. And so much like you with Bravanti, and yesterday, I believe it was, when we listened to Kyndryl, we went through that whole process of naming. And so the Solenis name was born, and the Solenis name stands for, we are the genesis of solutions for our clients. And so we have worked very hard to ensure and work with them that they understand that. So, that's right. And who are we today? And today we're a $3.5 billion business. We have over 6,000 employees, 47 manufacturing plants, and we operate in 120 countries. So over the course of the last decade or the last 7 years, we have really grown quite rapidly. We've completed 12 mergers and acquisitions. And during that same period of time, as we have just been describing, ESG questions from all of our stakeholders What are you doing about sustainability? What assessments have you completed? Suddenly these questions really became focused left, right. How do we manage this? So those questions were really coming at us, and we began to think about what should we do. And so now we really need to begin thinking about all the stakeholders that we need to respond to in this situation. So we think about our 4 audiences, our 4 stakeholders. First and foremost, it's our customers that are out there. We've been partnering with them, as I said, for a really long time in this space. They leverage our technologies, our products and services, and we help them with their toughest problems every day. But in the recent few years, they've really been leaning into us to help them to solve their sustainability problems and to meet their ESG metrics. And then a more recent customer for us, or stakeholder audience, is their customers, the customer's customer. So for a minute, let's just talk about that. So I know, and I'm going to assume that everybody here, raise your hand. You got a red flag, raise your hand. You heard about the Amazon effect, right? And we've talked this entire week about lockdown, pandemic. We've all been there. So I am sure that every single person here has ordered product. It's been delivered to their home, and it's in a brown box. And I can almost assure you that in that brown box was made with Solenis products. So also think about your coffee cups from your favorite coffee shop, or the molded fiber plate from your favorite fast food restaurant. Our technologies can help those products to be recyclable and, more importantly, compostable. And so we as consumers, that's what we want. We want to do business with companies that actually can help us feel like, oh, we're being more sustainable, and we want to do business with them because they are more sustainable. And our technologies can help with that in the world. We've had some conversations today from some of the, about some of the other stakeholders. We've had it this past week from some others talking about the investment community. And historically, that particular audience talked to us about our budget, our bottom line. And so in the last handful of years, there's no more conversations around that. They're asking us about our ESG. What assessment have you completed? Have you done the S&P assessment? Can we get your data? Can we pull it off the website? And why are they asking us those questions? Well, they want to be able to make a decision about their investing dollars, and we want to help them to make those decisions. And they also have really said to us, we want it to be quickly and readily available to us. And last but not least, and we spent a lot of time this week also talking about our employees. So they are interested in our culture. They want to know where we stand on diversity, equity, inclusion. They're making a decision as well. What company do they want to work for? And, does that company have the same kind of values that they have?
So when we talk about ESG, there's a lot of metrics, there's a lot of benchmarks, and it's sort of like alphabet soup. There's GRI, there's SASB, there's SDG goals. What does all that mean? We started to have these conversations, and I'm like Googling things, like, I don't know what that is. Well, I quickly learned. And but as the agency, it's our job to really make this information not only available, but in a way that these various stakeholders that Katie was talking about can consume it. Because data and charts is not really something that's easily understood by maybe the prospective employee. So making sure we had that information in a way that those various stakeholders could easily find it and could understand it was really important in this process. But not only that, we've talked a lot today about the Great Resignation and, attraction of new employees and retention of new employees. So some of these other benchmarks are also really important. And I remember back when we started this whole process, Katie and I were in John's office right before the pandemic. And he was talking to us about why this was important to him. And obviously the investment community was one of those key stakeholders in his mind, but also some of these other things that he was thinking of from an operational standpoint. And that was even before the pandemic. That was before some of these issues were really big issues for companies. He was looking forward. He was thinking about the future of Solenis. And one statistic that came out in a recent report is that employees tend to stay with companies that are ESG focused. As a matter of fact, they are about 25 to 50% more likely to be loyal to a company that is ESG focused, which in today's world is amazing. So not only that, think about customers. Customers tend to be also more loyal to companies that have common values with them and are focused on this issue. So I think they're about 5 times more likely to stay with a company that cares about these topics. And so John had that vision, and John understood that those things were going to be important to Solenis and the future of their business.
So about 2 years ago, we had a pretty significant challenge in front of us. So first, we really recognized we had to embrace ESG as a part of our brand. Think about that. We had to identify a vehicle for helping us to tell our ESG story. And we had to make sure that the value for these stakeholders around ESG was evident and that they could find it. And we had to think through all of that. So as a result, we made a decision to completely overhaul our website. And this was not just a little dust up. We completely rebuilt it. And we refreshed it and also refreshed the brand at the same time. So let's take a minute to talk about that, because this first piece of it, we'll talk a bit more about the planning and some of the lessons that we learned in a few minutes. But the first thing we did was our brainstorming and our planning. And oh yes, everybody's talked about this a lot. We did all of this virtually because this was started just as the pandemic started. So we did our brainstorming, we did our planning, we did our customer research, we did all the things that we do as good marketers. We established our success criteria for these stakeholders. And then when we were ready, we said, okie doke, our first step, big bold step for our company was to move away from that problem solver, innovation leader, technology leader. We had to step away from that and suddenly become a force for sustainable change. That took a big deep breath. And we still wanted to make sure though that our core customers were clear that we were still there to help them solve their toughest challenges, that they could find what they were looking for when they came visiting. But it was even more critical that all these other stakeholders, when they came looking, that they could find their ESG data, the methodologies that we've walked through, and other case stories. So in addition to that, it has really been one for me, leading all of this, a really great success part of this is that we deployed a new content management system. And it is mobile, it's modern, it's cool. Our team loves it. It's very user-friendly from a developing perspective for our team. The Godfrey team did a huge lift in this space to help us with this. And I know that this is not about website and developing or what have you, but it really has made our story so much better for us and sustainable in terms of the ability to continue to refresh our brand. The content management system has a language connector. And one of the things we're also proud of, because we're global, is so we're in 6 languages today. And it has a Salesforce.com connector, which helped us with our lead management. One of the first things we did was to overhaul our career section. We talked about the fact those employees are interested when they come there, who are we and what our culture is. And as a matter of fact, I got a team of people deploying new videos just this week on the website on our culture. Now the big part. This was a big whew. So a big team of people. We did 2 pretty significant things. So Donna, nobody prints anything anymore. I think I've heard that earlier today, but I did print a couple of these to show you. So we had a team of people that not only developed our first sustainable core comprehensive sustainability report, which was a pretty big undertaking for our team. Anybody who's familiar with GRI and some of SASB, I see some heads nodding, right? So we wrote this report, and since you're nodding your head, we also designed our website at the same time. So as we wrote portions of it, we leaned back in, how are we going to present this? How are we going to talk about it? And how we're going to manage it? And so one of the things when we, again, thought about some of these stakeholders, some of the things that they asked us for, we put a sustainability library into this part of the website. So while you can read through, you can kind of understand the storytelling about our ESG and our journey. But at the end of it, on every page, there's links to our library, which you can get our ESG tables, policies, information, ISO certifications, and so on. And it really has done very well for us. And then finally, no, we did not forget our customers. The new CMS allows us with its kind of cool bells and whistles. We added some blogs, some solution finders. We made that maybe more technical information that could be a little tedious occasionally to look through and read. We made a little bit more digestible for them.
As like Katie mentioned earlier, this was a really heavy lift in a short period of time. So their website is a rather large website in 6 languages. And we did that in about a 7-month period. But I'm happy to say that unlike some customers, Katie and her team realized the value of having good data up front. So this was a very insight-driven process. So up front, we did sessions with stakeholders. We talked to bankers. We talked to some of the C-suite at the organization. We talked to various people in the careers at HR department. So we did all these sessions to really understand what some of these stakeholders would be interested in on the website. We looked at analytics. We looked at SEO from the performance of the past site. We did some various interviews. We also put a true intent on the website to really understand current visitors, what they were looking for, were they able to find it, what couldn't they find? So we did all of that up front to really help us develop a site map that was going to address all of these various stakeholders. And then we tested that site map and the prototype in user testing. So we did all this in a very short period of time so that we could start building this site. And I'm happy to say that the results of that, I think some of these numbers speak for themselves. So the site has been live for about a year, and visitors have increased by 6.5 times. Not 6.5%, 6.5 times. Now, I know people are using the internet more these days during the pandemic, and that it could account for some of that increase. But honestly, that number alone, speaks to the fact that the site was working and people were. And the other stat that we're super proud of is initially, before the site launched, the old site, the #1 driver of traffic to that site was search. Now, the #1 driver of traffic to our site is repeat visitors, people coming back to the site, people benchmarking the site. So we know that they are coming back and they are consuming that content. How do we know that? PDF downloads have gone up by 31%. Contact submission forms have gone up by 27%. So the homework was worth it. The site was performing. But not only that, so let's get back to the ESG part of it. That has become the #1 section of the website. And we have had over 11,000 downloads of the report itself. We've had 151,000 visitors to that section of the site. The first blog that we did on sustainability, average time on that one page, on that one blog, over 10 minutes. So people are not only coming back and consuming the content, they're spending time with it, they're downloading it. So I think that speaks for itself. So doing the homework up front really paid off. So I want to share with you some lessons that we learned in this process that I think if you are embarking on a journey like this, they're helpful to think about. So first off, and we heard about some of this in other sessions in the past few days, be authentic. So when we thought about that value proposition for the brand and how we wanted to speak about the brand, we didn't throw out the fact that they were customer intimate. We stayed true to who they were. So most companies, at their core, either operationally efficient or a product leader, but we knew Solenis was customer intimate. And actually, they were doing a lot of these things. We just weren't talking about it. So they, at the core of their brand, they had always been about solving problems for customers. It just so happened that the most complex problems these days for those customers were around ESG and sustainability. So we started to talk about that more, infuse that in. So they became that force for sustainable change. It was at the heart of who they were. It was part of their DNA. That didn't change.
Yeah, and I can't echo enough with what Donna's saying, because we talked about that, because we really couldn't change that customer intimate approach. It is really who we are. Really, all that we had to do, though, was just to pivot and let the ESG story kind of become the primary brand highlight. I mean, I've mentioned that in many of our products and services that we offer to some of our customers, that sustainability conversation's already been there. We just needed to pivot just a little bit and really allow that foundation of innovation and our problem solving, all those supporting values, they just kind of just underpin everything that we did. We did, as Donna said, we took the time, to work through all of this to make sure and check the data. We did some sprints as we did the development work to make sure that it would make sense to these various stakeholder audiences. Next and most important in my mind, lesson learned, is you got to have the right partner. Okay, for something like this, which we've already said, we were evolving a brand, we were rebuilding a website, we had an extraordinary deadline. And so you really need to think about the fact that you got to have a partner. This is not a supplier-client relationship, okay? You got to have your friend that you can call on Saturdays, that you can call on Sunday evening, and we did a lot of that during the course of this. So communication and commitment by everybody was really required. And you got to think long and hard about that before you get started. So I can't emphasize this piece of it enough.
And you have to do your homework. So, we had been working together. Our companies have been working together for, 2 decades. So we were pretty familiar with the brand. We actually were the creators of the Solenis brand, but we didn't go into this with the assumption that we knew or understood everything we needed to know in order to make this project happen. We still did our homework. We still did our insight. And we still did all of that work to make sure that the programs were going to be a success and the approach was going to be a success. So I can't emphasize enough, even if you think do your homework.
Great. And then the last thing we'd like to share with you is that you have to have the right content. You got to have the right players at the table. And while we would always say that content is king, we get that, but really today, what are we doing? We're taking that content and we're telling that story. And that part of it is really, really important. And so for us, we had a lot of content that was already on the site for our current customers. And we really just needed to present some of that in a more engaging manner with some of the new bells and whistles, as I've already highlighted. And I've already highlighted this, we had to really go about developing all of that content for the sustainability portion of the website. And I indicated that we have done that side by side. So we had to find new subject matter experts to develop content on various pieces. We had to plan how to, to meet these stakeholders' needs where they were and work through all those deliverables. So to do that, you got to have the right players at the table. And I mean, there were some days at the end of the day, my head was totally spinning because I went from an IT meeting to a design meeting to a production meeting to a writing meeting to the next meeting. And it was all day long, every single day, for like several months. So you said you don't want to do it again. Perhaps maybe I might not either. But it is sort of like a huge thing you can look back on in your career, right? Okay. But pulling all of those folks together, the most important piece of it too is content's king. Getting those content writers together and the right players at the table, making sure that all of those puzzle pieces are pulled together generally rest with the coach, right? And that was my role. And so I worked with all of the teams to make sure that our milestones were met and that all of our creative elements and all of our technical elements were all there when we were needed and available, so that as we were creating the site, we were pulling these pieces together. It was ready to come together on time. And I don't know that we've already mentioned this, but we actually did it on budget.
So just as we wrap up, again, here are the 4 takeaways that we'd like to share. So when you're thinking about, that infusing some of this ESG positioning, be authentic to your brand. Make sure that what you're saying is really true and authentic to who you are. Don't purpose wash, I think is one of the terms we heard this week. So number two, find the right partner. Although we had been working together for quite some time, Katie did do her due diligence, and they did go through a process to make sure that we were the right partner for this. And, thirdly, do your homework. So even if you think you know everything there is to know about the brand or the audiences, just double check and do your homework. And lastly, having the right content in a way that is easy for the audience to consume and easy for them to find.
So the big so what? Well, we did deliver the updated website, woo, with our refresh brand story. And we did it on time, and I just said we did it on budget, and we did do a soft launch at the end of March. And then 2 weeks later, we rolled out all the press releases and all the bits and pieces to celebrate that with the world. And I can't begin to tell you really how proud we are of the website, because I think the numbers speak for themselves, how well it's performed. But more importantly, which I thought was great, back through the CEO, back through our investor relations team, the commentary that has come back through some of these stakeholder teams has really been pretty phenomenal. And so for me, that kind of information and that feedback has been super reaffirming. But people, time, technology doesn't stand still. It keeps moving forward. And we are that kind of company. So last fall, we just completed another merger. And within 60 days of that, we kind of investigated our new organization, what it meant, where we stood on sustainability, and how we drive value for another set of stakeholders, if you will. And so I can suggest that today Solenis is and continues to be a force for sustainable change. And Donna and I'd like to close this with a video that's running on, an updated video that's running on our website today.
Water is life. It's also the greatest tool in human history. For as long as human beings have been shaping this world, we have done it with water. So if you're looking for the next frontier, just look around you. With water, we can create more while consuming less. Replace wasteful habits with sustainable ones. We can create lifelong memories while protecting the lives we cherish most. Preserve the things we build and the planet we call home. Water is the next frontier, and we are the explorers.
Thank you.
Katie, Donna, thank you very much indeed. That was a great case study, and really comprehensive and thorough, and great to get ESG on the table and understand the challenges that you're facing along the way. And then in terms of I love the point about, you made a point about you've got, as a B2B company, typically, as we always do, they have a lot of innovation and stuff that we're proud of. And you said you had to kind of pivot a bit away from that and emphasize the environmental and social side. Was that a kind of tough battle to have internally?
Actually not. It really wasn't, because we have, as John highlighted in his renew, reuse, recycle, all your natural resources, literally for all of our clients, since we've been in business. So, think about flipping on your lights, your power industry, your paper industry, your oil and gas. I mean, that's the businesses that we're in.
Yeah.
But in every place, we're helping them to reduce their energy utilization, to ensure that their water management is on target, that they're managing their natural resources in the best way possible. And often the products that they're producing are more sustainable. That kind of always been our business.
Yeah.
We just never said it.
So it was, you were just pivoting into something you're already doing anyway. It was just a reinterpretation rather than being okay.
Correct. And that was why I had indicated was for us a little bit more of a pivot there, but these other stakeholders, again, the S part, which is our employees of ESG, they're like, well, we want to know more about your culture. And so we realized that part of our story wasn't being told very well. We realized that these stakeholders, the bankers, they were more interested, and they needed to be able to make decisions. And weren't able really to find the types of information that they were looking for. And then the more recent, which is the downstream customer, that are saying, me want our coffee cups to be a certain way.
Uh-huh.
And we have products and technologies can help with that. So they're really kind of moving back up the food chain to us and becoming a much more focused client for us.
And did you know, because the term ESG is relatively new to me, did you kind of set out on the journey going, it's ESG, that's the solution, or did that kind of, that's where we want to be, that's where we want to go, or did that kind of, the acronym become apparent whilst you were on the journey? Do you see what I mean? Did you start with?
I do. So I think we probably, like many people, start with sustainability, and everybody thinks, oh, sustainability is all about green,
Yeah.
right? You know, but when you really start digging deep into that conversation, that's where some of these acronyms that we've talked about today begin to percolate up.
Yeah.
And so really, when you begin, I mean, sustainability, when you talk about it, is not really necessarily quantifiable,
Right.
but ESG is a way that you can quantify it.
Yep.
You know, and so those metrics are out there, and those expectations by these stakeholders
Yeah.
kind of demand that. And so as we moved into it, not to get into the details, but we had to do a materiality assessment. We had to investigate how we were going to present that story on that side of it, which is all in that report.
Okay.
And it is highly technical.
Yeah.
And so we have maybe been 30 seconds ahead in some cases in terms of learning. And within Solenis, we actually have it's probably 50 people. It's a task force around sustainability. We named our first chief sustainability officer during this time. And so working through, you know, our carbon footprint for our technologies and our products. And a lot of those efforts are really moving forward quite rapidly in our organization, you know, to ensure that we can stay ahead of this front.
So it is a website, but and it is a content job, but at the same time, it's a more profound transformation in the organization than that. That's
Oh,
just the tip of the
100% on that, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it really started, I think John, the CEO, understood probably even better than we did at the beginning what this journey was going to entail.
Okay.
He was having some of those conversations with some of the stakeholders, and so I think it was clear to him what needed to be done.
Which is, so
He
you
just
didn't,
wasn't sure how to get there.
and you didn't have to convince him. He was already.
Oh,
there.
no,
And
there's no
that's a
convincing.
critical piece of
Yeah.
it, I think.
I can totally imagine.
Yeah.
Just last question to you, Donna. In terms of your client base, how many of your clients are in the same place as Solenis were in terms of thinking about this topic? Are they at the bleeding edge, or is this a common conversation you're having? You know, how does it
It is
feel?
becoming much more of a frequent conversation. So Solenis was the first company I went on this journey with, but I've gone on it with about 3 or 4 others since then. And it's something that people are asking about every day.
And I guess each time you do it, you learn more, and you're better able to do it better the next time.
Yeah,
okay.
I feel like I understand the lingo now. Like I said, that alphabet soup, I know what those things mean now.
Yeah.
Good
I mean,
stuff.
even financial disclosures, I mean, that we're learning all kinds of risk assessments that have to be completed. And we're getting the phone calls every day. Where do you stand on this? Where do you stand on that? So
So it's becoming more and more important, and you've got to be in that
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Thank you both. Fantastic case study. Really, really appreciate it. So
thank you so much.
Appreciate it.